All right, welcome back. This is a news. We're going to combine the news and the scripture here. There's big events that have come upon the world scene here concerning this World War III, the Great Tribulation, and our destruction. First, a few news articles in case you haven't been paying attention over the last week. War between Iran and Saudi Arabia could send oil to $300 a barrel and impoverish the world. November 15th, RT wrote that. You can go check out that article. Iran sent in a missile into, Yemen did, and it was Iranian-made, or so the story goes. And now there's they've called it an act of war, and they're on the cusp of war with Iran. Saudi Arabia is, and America, obviously, because we also, I think I've got the article in here, are preparing for war with Iran. We have begun shipping armor, heavy armor, and all kinds of stuff to Kuwait in preparation for a war with Iran. We'll cover that too coming up. Let's see some of these other ones. Lebanon accuses Saudi Arabia of holding its prime minister hostage. The prime minister went over there and resigned from Saudi Arabia, the prime minister of Lebanon. That's like their president. There's news about that from Reuters. Really strange goings-on in the Middle East. The war drums are really beating. Tensions mount in Lebanon as Saudi Arabia escalates power struggle with Iran. And the resignation of Prime Minister Said Hariri is the latest shot in the regional crisis. The Guardian had a story on that. Saudi Arabia and Iran battle for power in the Middle East. Saudi Arabia orders its citizens to evacuate Lebanon, and it cut off all flights to there. That was from NBC News on November 9th. You can read all these. This is big news. And it fits with Scripture perfectly about this time. In Zephaniah 3:8 it says, "Therefore wait you upon me, says Yahuwah, until the day that I rise up to the prey. For my determination is to gather the nations, that I may assemble the kingdoms, to pour upon them mine indignation, even all my fierce anger, for all the earth shall be devoured with the fire of my jealousy." Well, that's what we see going on. We have Saudi Arabia drawn into this, Yemen, obviously, Iran, which is one of the leaders we're going to cover here, and I've covered previously, and Lebanon. And that's, that includes a lot of factions over there. We'll cover that. Going on, Joel has the same thing. "Proclaim you among the Gentiles, prepare war, wake up the mighty men, let all the men of war draw near, let them come up. Beat your plowshares into swords, and your pruning hooks into spears, let the weak say I'm strong. Assemble yourselves and come, all you heathen, and gather yourselves together round about." This is what's going on over there. They're all getting ready for war. He's drawing them into this big war. And it's amazing to me to see all these nations. We have North Korea, they're on the edge. They've threatened or said that they're practicing or getting ready to nuke America. Just this last week, they sent word of that to Russia. Russia reported in answer to our sending 3 aircraft carrier battle groups to go do drills off their coast. So that side of the world is getting drawn in as well. You can read the whole thing there in Joel. There's more news and a lot more scripture. Russia says, this is history, Russia says to close the Syria deal with Turkey and Iran. Russia, Turkey, and Iran are close to finalizing an agreement creating 4 de-escalation zones. These are the 4 that are named in Jeremiah. And I did a video about this 5 years ago, and now Turkey has flipped. They might as well not be in NATO anymore. They're chasing us out of the Incirlik Air Force Base, which is in Turkey. And I just read news today that they're talking about, openly, allowing Russia to run air flights from Incirlik Air Force Base. And they're buying Russia's S-400 or 300 air defense system. So Turkey now has flip-flopped completely. And they just haven't announced it to NATO because there'd be, huge goings on. You can find, there's lots of good commentary out there on this. Here's the big one. Here's the big one today. I was getting ready to do this even before this news today, and as I searched for Turkey, Russia, and Syria, I see that here's what's coming, and Iran, because these four are named in Jeremiah. We'll cover that in just a minute. But here's the news today from Reuters. Turkey, Russia, Iran to hold a summit in Sochi in November 22nd. Well, that's just 4 or 5 days away here. So Turkey, Russia, and Iran will hold a summit. Summit is code lingo for war planning. This is a war summit to discuss developments in Syria this next week, in Russia, and the resort there, and Turkish broadcaster, and they said. This is on RT as well. And there's a lot going on back and forth now about U.S. troops in Syria. And we know they're there. And we've been helping out the rebels and all that stuff. And I did a whole talk on this before. You can check out back there on the Stiggy 1 channel. But here on November 14th on RT, Mattis claims the UN let the U.S. intervene in Syria, although it never did. So here are lead general guys going, oh, the UN let us do this. Right. Erdogan calls on Russia and the U.S. He doesn't care about Russia. He's just lumping them in, so he doesn't look like he's turning against the hand that feeds him. U.S. to pull troops out of Syria. So they want our troops out of there. Get your troops the heck out of Syria, you warmongering United States, who have attacked and bombed just about every Middle East nation over there, like Libya. The latest, Syria calls on U.S. to withdraw its troops. So they want the U.S. out of Syria as well. Get out of here. And Russia, I was trying to find, RT came up and said that there's U.S. forces on the ground in Syria. And but let's see here. U.S. troops are supporting. Yeah, we're supporting the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces. Yeah, of course we're doing all that. Always fighting wars, aren't we? U.S. forces prepare for war with Iran. Here's the next big story I saw last week. We're preparing for war with Iran. And you can go out and look on, let's see here, U.S. forces prepare for war with Iran, World War III, November 9th. This came out of World News 2 days ago. There's the conservative news feed is where it came from. It's also out there in Israeli News Live. It has a short clip about us. We're sending armaments to, there it is right there. U.S. prepares for war with Iran. Israeli News Live, November 7th, 2014. So we are sending heavy armor, tanks, and things like that to Kuwait in preparation for a war with Iran. So we're getting ready for this war. And Saudi Arabia has announced war. Obviously, they're shuffling along in lockstep with us against Iran when this missile supposedly came in that was Iranian-made. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. I don't know. Anyway, the war's on. I mean, this is big news. The war is on over there. We've deployed here it is. Military deployed heavy military equipment to Kuwait, what appears to be a buildup of force for possible war with Iran. Iran also flexing its own muscle defiant of U.S. sanctions and presence in the Middle East. Okay, let's see where this ties into Scripture. This is from Jeremiah 25:12. It shall come to pass when the 70 years are accomplished. Now, this is the 70 years I covered in the previous video from the UN announcement, declaration to create the Jewish state on November 29th, 1947 to November 29th, 2017. Well, that is, we're sitting here at November 16th. And, boy, these 70 years are about up. And it says when they're up, when they're accomplished, here's what he says he's going to do. I'm going to punish the king of Babylon, that's the USA, and that nation for their iniquity in the land, and make it perpetual desolations. Now, let's see who's all lumped into this. Because I read this before, and it didn't make that much sense. Because he goes on here and talks about all these nations that are going to get destroyed at the same time. And he says, for many nations great kings will serve themselves of them, and they shall drink and be moved and be mad for the sword that I'm sending among them. Yeah, it's almost like insane, all these nations getting ready to attack each other. It's like they've gone mad. They've taken leave of their senses. And I took the cup at Yahuwah's hand and made all nations to drink, to whom Yahuwah had sent me. It's like they're being forced to drink this. They're all like on a drunken war binge. To wit, Jerusalem and the cities of Judah, that's the state of Israel over there, and the kings thereof, and the princes thereof, and make them a desolation, and astonishment, and hissing as a curse as it is this day. So there's going to be a lot of the cities of Israel over there that are a desolation. And the king of Egypt, and the servants and the princes, and all the people of the land of Uz. If any of these I don't have comments on, and you know who they are, send them to me. Maybe I'll update this thing. It'd be nice to know. Uz, I know, is that region over there. That's where Abraham came from. Could be parts of Iraq. All the kings of the land of the Philistines, I think that's Palestine, Ashkelon and Azaz, Gaza, Ekron and the remnant of Ashdod, Edom, that's Turkey, of course they're in the mix here, they're ready to go, and Moab, that's parts of southern Israel now, or Jordan, and the children of Ammon, that's Jordan, they still call it Ammon, Jordan. The kings of Tyrus, that's Great Britain, and all the kings of Zidon, Dedan, Teman, Buz, the utmost corners, all the kings of Arabia. There's Saudi Arabia. And here's Saudi Arabia in the mix, and they're threatening to start war with Lebanon. In fact, some leaders of Lebanon are prepared for Saudi Arabia to strike any time. Saudi Arabia was asking Israel to help them to go attack Lebanon, of all things. And the kings of the men mingled in the desert, Zimri, and the kings of Elam, that's Iraq, and the kings of the Medes, Iran, or perhaps up above Uz is Iraq. Or both. The Medes are certainly Iran. They still speak the Mede language. And the kings of the north far and wide, and the kings from the face of the earth, and the kings of king of Shishak, that's Babylon, USA, shall drink after them, or beside them, as after sometimes is translated beside. Therefore you shall say, you shall drink, and you shall be drunken and spew and rise no more because of the sword that I send upon you. If you refuse to take the cup at the hand, then you shall say unto them, thus saith Yahuwah of hosts, you shall certainly drink. So these people, they shall certainly drink, and so will we. You think these Americans are going to get away with what we've been doing? Bombing those countries over there like we did with Libya and killed Muammar and bombed their people because they wouldn't sell their oil for dollars and all that. They wouldn't play our game. We're going to certainly drink. We've dealt this out to a lot of people, and 70 million abortions and queer marriage and everything else. Guess what? We will certainly drink. And so will all these other nations for their wickedness too. Going on, I think we're going to get, the worst of it here. Going on in Jeremiah 51. Now these four nations, did I cover that? The four that are this big, this summit right here. This ought to really trouble people. Turkey, Russia, Iran, and Syria are holding a war summit in just a few days. November 22nd. These four. Now, I did a video on this 5 years ago that Turkey would flip-flop and they would join the other side. At that time, they were firmly in the palm of NATO and all the rest of it. Well, here it is in Jeremiah 51. Set you up a standard below the trumpet in the land, prepare the nations against her, call against her the kingdoms of Ararat, that's Turkey, that's where the Ararat mountains are. Mini, look that up, you'll see that's Syria. And Ashkenazi. Ashkenazi Jews come from the Black Sea region of Russia. So we have Turkey, Syria, and Russia. Appoint a captain against her, cause the horses to come up as rough caterpillars. Prepare against her the nations with the king of the Medes. The Medes are Iran. They still speak the Mede language. And the captains thereof and the rulers thereof and all the land of his dominion. So these four are joined together now. And more than that, they've been joined together for some time. And they've even had that common policy since back in September or whatever. Now they have a war council coming up, and we have a war brewing, and it's really getting real over there. It's starting. Saudi Arabia shot down one of their own helicopters. That's what Israel reported. They shot down their own helicopter with princes fleeing in that, and some of their own guys that were trying to flee out of Saudi Arabia, and shot them down, killed them. There's something like 7 or 9 on there. Fascinating. Go listen to Jim Willie did a talk about it on an interview, and he told the Straight Skinny on it. And there's a couple others do that as well. It's really getting hot. This war is about ready to torch off. And here all the four are named, and these four are having a war summit. A war summit. And the time is up. Let me tell you, this is it. The time is up. The 70 years are up. And if you do a little more calculating, by the way, he's going to make Babylon, USA, a desolation without an inhabitant. Read on there in Jeremiah 51. Read that whole chapter.